Hello? Yes, this is Woody Close.
And Virginia?
And we're talking to you, transcribing directly from Red Hook 31, our telephone number, and from our kitchen, the Red, White, and Blue Kitchen at Echo Valley Farm at Red Hook in Dutchess County, New York, which is a town just like any other town of 1,000 population in the whole United States, and from a house...
Which isn't like any house in the United States, maybe, huh?
Thank you, dear. I'm very glad you said that because I was about to make another protest today. What a character you are. What a household this is. What fine young men our children are, all 5 of them. I mean, 4 of them.
Hey, we've got 4 boys.
4 boys and 1 girl, yes. But this house reminds me just a little bit of that famous play, the Kaufman and Hart play, You Can't Take It With You, which was a wonderful story of the zaniest family in history, I'm sure. One was a toe dancer, do you remember?
Yeah, I remember.
Another occupant of the house was a very sweet old man who came in for a cup of coffee, a bum, 10 years before and had been there ever since. Another one, the son-in-law of the household, was a man who manufactured fireworks in the basement. And in the last act, the fireworks all blew up, and the fire department and Mayor LaGuardia came down to put it out. That is our house, dear, as of today.
We haven't.
Believe me.
Only ones we haven't had in our house today are the volunteer fire department from Red Hook, and I bet they're standing by with a hook and ladder.
You know, dear, it's a very pleasant thing to stay home here in the country and not go to New York where I have to do a radio production business, but to stay home and think very seriously about writing a very important script for a news show.
Yes, sir, honey.
So,
but the children don't know these things.
I told them last night.
And you know what that does?
I know.
That's the old red flag that the matador waves before the bull as he charges through the opening into the arena.
Last night I went to bed early, and I set my clock for a very early hour this morning, and I thought I would get myself up before breakfast and go right to work on that script. And I got down in the study at, about 8 o'clock. And did the kids sleep until the usual 8:30 or so? No, they did not.
Well, the little darlings knew you had something on your mind. Don't you know, dear, that's the perversity of children and nature and even women. But wasn't it fun? Didn't you love to have their tiny little feet pattering in just at the right moment?
Yes, I suppose I did. At 9 o'clock, I was going strong on my script, Virginia. I just had 5 minutes to get going on it, and at 9 o'clock, I had to stop everything I was doing, go down in the basement and mix up some paint for Kevin and Nikki, who were going to paint that big oil barrel we're going to put out on the terrace for waste paper and things like that. Got myself all messed up, too.
Yes, but you know what I had to do,
what?
My fine feathered friend? As I was washing our little tiny batch of 195 breakfast dishes, and you were happily typing away in the study, and I was out here bending over a hot sink, you, having thoughtfully provided your 2 children out of the 4 with paint and all the things that go toward making a wife's life a nightmare, they came in painted. Not the barrel painted, honey child, but the boys painted. They were nude from the waist up, as you had suggested they be. They had their bare feet in good order, and they were just painted like those... Oh, you remember when the big, wonderful movie productions like Ben-Hur with the gilded bodies driving the chariots?
Darling, the Romans didn't paint themselves. It was the Indians. You're thinking of the last of the Mohicans.
No, sir. I'm thinking of the Hollywood production of Ben-Hur. I'm sure they had some gilded bodies floating around. And here these characters were all painted white. And then they came in very happily and said, Mommy, there's no turpentine. What'll we do now? I said, what have you been painting? They said, well, you know, it gets all over you. And I said, nope, I don't think that got all over you. It looks like fine brush strokes to me. It looked like they just stood there honestly and painted each other.
You want to know the truth of the whole matter?
Yeah, what?
At 9:30, after they'd been painting the barrel for about a half an hour, I happened to look out of the study window, and there were Nicky and Kevin out in the quad, just calmly painting each other up and down.
You mean without
long,
even...
white strokes. Turpentine, linseed oil, white lead all over them.
Well,
then Kevin came in and said, oh, Daddy, it hurts. What'll we do? How can we get this off? It burns.
That's what I loved. I didn't love to hear him screaming. That sounds really sadistic. But I loved it when he found that all is not gay and carefree with the paint job that you do on yourself. And I said, well, Kevin, we haven't any more turpentine. What are we going to do now? Well, Mommy, he said, get your nail polish remover. And I said, that little teeny bottle of nail polish remover from the dime store won't take one bit of that paint off. You're just going to have to go around like that. But the poor kids, really, it did burn them. And Kevin kept screaming, can I jump in the brook? Can I jump in the brook? It's burning, it's burning. When he had turpentine on his back and nail polish remover on his face. It's a wonder he didn't just blow right up. He looked tomato red.
Oh, he didn't either.
Mm.
You mean when he got it off him, finally, after the turpentine of the afternoon?
Yes,
It's a good
he did.
thing, I think, probably, that we finally did get it off. And
Well,
talking about tomatoes, dear,
Yes, dear.
I hope you realize that you are definitely in trouble.
Am I?
There is one of our listeners who does not like you to say tomato.
Oh, there are more than one. There are 2 or 3 who don't
Do you
like
know
me
that
to say
Mr.
tomato.
Webster says tomato is the first pronunciation, tomato is the second pronunciation?
Well,
you can
I'm...
go on from there if you want to.
Well, I'd be glad to go on. What gives you this authority, dear,
Well,
to tell me off on tomatoes? I've been saying tomatoes all my life. Why should I change now? You give me 5 good reasons.
of course, as a matter of fact, this card, dear, which is unsigned, takes me to task a little bit for calling our daughter, Debbie, the most beautiful girl in the world.
What does it say?
She says we ought to do that at home and not on the air. She says she has a daughter a month older
Well-
than yours, and I'll bet she can put yours in the shade. In
Read it
quotes,
to me.
I mean,
exactly.
I am reading it to you.
No, you're not. You're quoting from it.
I'm reading it. Any
Read
day,
it.
she says. Also, stop talking politics on the air, and tomatoes are tomatoes and not tomatoes. Sincerely, a listener.
Oh,
Now,
my.
I hope you're satisfied, dear.
Well,
As a
I-
matter of fact, we don't talk politics on the air. I think where she got that idea is the fact that you mentioned the fact that our piano tuner had been over a week before tuning Mr. Governor Dewey's piano at Pauling.
See what good company our piano keeps, but I don't think that could be called talking politics. But here's the thing. I think freedom of speech is involved. I really do. I think that if I have been saying tomatoes all my life, I can go on saying tomatoes. I don't see why I should have to stop, because
Good.
they're only the second best pronunciation. Noah Webster says tomato is preferable, and you have always found that a tomato is preferable, haven't you, dear?
Yes, I
Especially
like
a
them.
blonde tomato. Now, me, I'm the tomato type. I just think I'm going to go through life saying tomato on account of it's still a free country, and that's the way I say it. You know?
Well, you know, dear, I have a certain distinction between the two.
What's that?
The ones that have 2 legs and blonde hair and skirts I call tomatoes.
Oh, no.
The ones you eat are just tomatoes.
Well, in any case, they're very juicy, aren't they, honey?
Here's a woman who's really got us a little bit mixed up, Virginia. This is great. This is the only card like this out of thousands that we've received that call us Woody K. Louse. Louse. Did I spell it that way on the air? Do you
You
think?
got called that once in Toronto, remember? You got a card in the mail, and I shall never forget. Addressed to Mr. Woody K. Louse. And this is the only other time it's ever happened.
I think
Good
we
morning,
better.
Louse.
Never mind, dear.
This will stick, I'm afraid, as
And
long
talking
as you
about
shall
good
live.
mornings, this is not a good morning on account of
Oh.
after the boys got through this morning out there in the barnyard, painting themselves up and down with that white paint. I got them in and got them a little bit cleaned up. I should have been working at the typewriter, of course, doing my script. But at 10 o'clock, what happens? We have the neighbors arriving to help
Well?
with the last of the mail and the
Well-
stuffing of the envelopes with the pictures and the little note we're sending out. And a very fine clam bake that is, too.
I'll say it was really nice. I wish you'd all been with us. It was a real old-time coffee clutch, don't you think?
I should
all
say.
our friends, all these nice gals who whipped in to give us the last final push to the picture so that all of you nice friends of ours would be sure and get them by the weekend, came in, and we sat around the table, and it was like a production line in a factory. And the children kept coming in saying, Mommy, can we stamp some? And we had a fine experience on that. The first batch of pictures we sent out, 35 of them, I remember, came back neatly tied with a very pointed little note from our postmaster saying, would you mind putting the stamps on these? We don't feel like financing you. So I said to the children, no, children, you run on out and paint the town red or paint each other, but leave us alone. So us girls sat there. But it was a very cozy, quiet house. You were typing in the study.
Yes, it certainly was. And at 11 o'clock, the mailman arrives, and our mailbox is on a little teeny hill in front of the house, which goes down to the brook. So he stopped his car, as he always does, put his hand out into the mailbox with some more mail, and obviously took his foot off the brake of his car, and the car rolled down the hill a little bit and caught his hand in the
Oh,
mailbox,
boy.
as you know.
Yeah.
It could have been very serious, but actually it was very funny because he got his hand out of the mailbox finally, came rushing into the house in the middle of my script, Virginia, asking for first aid.
So we had a little first aid station. We whipped upstairs, and do you know what, Woody? We found the last Band-Aid that those children had left in the box. Fortunately, they had left just one, and who left it? I don't know. I'm sure it was a mistake, or they would never have left it in there. But we did find the Band-Aid, and we fixed his thumb up, and he got all patched up, and we said, wouldn't you like some coffee? And he said, oh, no. He looked kind of disgusted. The mailman's getting awful mad at us because all of our nice friends are writing in. And I said, oh, wouldn't you sit down and have a cup of something to help you through the last rounds of your appointed rounds? And he said, no, thank you. And he fled as though he'd been caught in a trap.
So that took another hour out of my morning. By 12 o'clock, we all have to stop and have lunch. We all go out on the terrace and sit down and have a very peaceful lunch for half an hour.
Peaceful? With that kitten climbing in your lap, eating the ends off everything?
I don't mind the kitten.
Oh,
He's hungry. Why doesn't somebody feed him better?
Listen, he is going to be the biggest cat in Dutchess County. I'll match that cat against that white pig. If he doesn't get as big as that white pig, I'll eat something like,
So from
edible.
12:30 to 1 o'clock, Virginia, I had an opportunity to work on my script, and you can always do a complete script in a half an hour.
Oh, sure.
That's very nice. At 1 o'clock, Christy, who was supposed to be sleeping until 2:30, gets up from his nap and comes down with his fingers in his mouth and says, Daddy, can I have some gum?
Oh, boy.
He's just mad about
Well,
gum, that child. Why?
When the painter was here a couple of weeks ago doing the kitchen, every morning when he came in, he'd bring a nice big package of gum and say, here, Christopher, before breakfast he'd bring it in. And I would give the painter long looks, and I thought it was very sweet of him, but I tried to impress upon him that this didn't gee with my idea of child rearing. I don't care for children who chew gum before breakfast. I don't think it's a good idea. Then the painter would say, no, I won't do it anymore. Then he'd go out for lunch and come back with 5 or 6 chocolate bars and distribute them among the children. And then the next morning, sure as shooting, he'd come in the back door with his little package of gum. And I hated to be so ungrateful and so nasty, but I kept saying, now, look, Christopher won't eat his breakfast. And then Christopher would take one mouthful of Wheaties and say, I'm all finished, Mommy. Now can I have my gum? Boy, what a fight we had with him. And then when you're home for the whole day, as you were, dear, as you are today, Christopher thinks it's a Roman holiday, so he always goes upstairs for his nap, closes his big brown eyes for 2 seconds, waits till I get downstairs, and then gives me time to sit out or whatever I'm doing. Then he always appears with his shoes in his hand, which I love.
Yeah, I do, too. And as soon as we got Christy settled again, the 3 big boys, Taylor and Nicky and Kevin, all came in fighting madly over who's going to ride the pony first.
I know, and
it's a fine thing. Why do I have to play referee as well as author on the typewriter?
Well, I don't know, but I found out from a lot of my friends that if I had 4 daughters instead of 4 sons, they would be following me around saying, can I whip up a 1-egg cake? Could I make the beds? Could I cut out a dress? Can I sew a fine seam, or can I do some, dusting in the house? And, of course, they'd be with me all the time. But these characters just look at me and rush right by me when you're home, and they'd brush me off. The only time that all you men really come around and, act like, I'm alive is when I say, come to dinner, come to luncheon, breakfast is served. Oh, boy, does that get you all. It only takes me 2 hours and a half to get all 5 of you at the table now. That's for summertime.
I know, dear.
Wintertime
We're so busy
is
with
3
so many
hours.
other things, dear. We can't help it, We've got so many things to do besides eat.
Why are you always so hungry, though? You're always complaining. Every single one of you is complaining. As soon as dinner or luncheon or breakfast is over, saying, anything to eat in this house? Anything to eat in this house? And I'm baking cakes like mad these days.
The only thing I'm pointing out, dear, we love your cakes and we love your meals and everything else, but the only thing I'm personally pointing out is the fact that I've got some work to do, and I can't do it in this house, which is an exact replica of You Can't Take It With You. If we don't keep the children out, if we don't have a little time to do these things.
Well, Sweetie Pie, what would you suggest? We put them in the cold storage, put them in the locker until you're finished, or what? Children are children. They're going to go on like the river. And also, I thought the nicest touch of the whole day was when the 5 cows streamed in one by one through the front gate. That was cute.
I think they were just coming to call on you, dear, and they wanted a cup of coffee with us here, don't you?
Well, listen, if those cows ever came through this kitchen door, they'd never get out short of a beefsteak, I can tell you that. My goodness, was I startled to look up and see 5 whole scenes. And that reminds me, when I was driving over to Barrytown the other afternoon to pick up something, Christopher was with me, and he looked around knowingly at the cows on the hillside as we went by the Boer's farm, and he said, look, Mommy, look at all those steen holes.
Oh, no.
An authority on cows.
A child born almost and reared in the country calls them speen holes?
Yeah, I felt so knowing. I said,
What
honey,
is the right name, dear?
Oh, stop. Guernsey. Don't be silly. I know a whole scene from a Guernsey.
Darling, I'm sorry. We've got to get off the air. It's been very pleasant chatting with all our friends. Goodbye. This is Woody Close.
And Virginia.
We've been transcribing directly from Echo Valley Farm. Goodbye.